Hi guys, and welcome to my channel. So in today's video I'm going to be showing you guys how to make this beautiful hand knit corset top. This is the front. Give you guys 360 view. So this top is great because it's perfect for crocheters who have one beautiful skein of weight 6 yarn and want to use it for sewing but they don't know what. This is a perfect project for that. It's wearable and does not use much yarn. I only use like 85 grams, which is insane to make this. It's also perfect if you're an absolute beginner and want to try something new. No crochet or knitting or even hand knitting experience is necessary to make this top, and I'll show you guys how to make everything from scratch. So let's get into the video. Alright, so these are the materials you're going to need for your corset. So first you're going to need a weight 6 yarn. I'm a small and used 86 grams, which is a little under 1 skein. You will only adjust that if you're a larger size. You'll also need a regular needle. This is technically optional, but you will need it if you are adding bows to your corset or if you need to fix your grommets. Next you have ribbon. This is also optional, as you can use yarn to thread your corset, but if you're going to add bows, you're going to need it for that. Grommets are optional. There is a way to do it without grommets, but I really highly recommend it because the other way to do it may end up damaging your project over time. Next, you're going to need thread the color of your ribbon. This is technically optional. You need it if you are adding bows. Next, you're going to need thread the color of your yarn. This is also optional, but you need it if you have a problem with your grommets because there is a way to fix them with thread the color of your yarn. Before we start, I wanted to talk about the construction of this top. So you see we have the straps here. Here we have our base row forming the length we want. When we make this, we want to make sure that we have accounted for the hole in the back. Then you can see we go straight. If you want, you can increase here to make your fabric wider. And then as your body narrows, we're going to decrease, which will make the fabric smaller. And then we're going to do regular rows, and then we're going to add the tip. Hopefully this will help everything in the video make more sense. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is measure how long we're going to make our starting chain. So I got my measuring tape here. And you're just gonna measure along your bust. So my total is 32. What I'm gonna do is, because we're making a corset, unless you want a super fitted corset without a hole in the back, you're gonna get rid of some inches. Otherwise, you are going to keep it as it is. So I'm going to do about 26 for mine, keeping in mind that once I start, it's going to be a little bit smaller of a gap. And once you have the measurement, you're going to go to the next step, which is beginning to hand knit. Okay, so once you have the measurement, you're going to start by making a slip knot. So what you're going to do is you're going to make a loop with your fingers, and then you're going to take this piece and you're going to put it through the loop, and then you're going to pull, and then that forms a knot with a loop. And now what we're going to do is we're going to tighten it. So you're going to hold the knot with your finger, and with your other hand you're going to pull this string until it makes a loop about the size we want. Now what we're going to do is we're going to be making a chain. So we are going to take the long piece of yarn and we are going to put our finger through this loop, and we are going to pinch the piece of yarn and pull it through that loop until we formed another loop. And that is our first chain. So we're going to do it again. Put our finger through the loop, pinch the loop, grab the piece of yarn, and pull it through. and that's our second chain. So we're going to do it one more time. Put our finger through the loop, grab the working yarn, and pull it through. So now we have 3. So now we're going to chain until we get the length we want. Alright, I finished chaining. So now I have a chain of 45, and I'm small, so if you're small too, you can do the same numbers as me, but I highly suggest doing the measuring for yourself, as it will fit you better. So I had 26 inches measured out, and so when I hold my chain to the measuring tape and I stretch it out a little bit, it's 26 inches. So that's what you want to do. You want to make sure that when you stretch it out, you aren't fully stretching it out, because that's the full amount of stretch it will have. So if you wear it like that, it'll be harder to get on and a little bit more uncomfortable. So you want to slightly stretch it, but not completely, to fit your measurement. So once you have that, you are going to set it up like this, and you're going to take this loop and point it upwards. That is going to be like our first stitch. So now we are going to take our yarn, we're going to find this top loop, just one loop right there, and the next stitch, we're skipping that one because it already has this loop, and we are going to take our working yarn, that's what the yarn connecting to the ball is called, and we are going to pinch this loop with our fingers and pull up a loop just like we did with the chain. Now we're going to find that next top loop right there, and you're going to do the same thing. So grab your yarn and pull up a loop. Now we're going to find our next top. There's also this little piece right there, but we aren't going to be going into that. So we just want to find that singular piece of yarn, and we're going to pull up a loop. And we are going to be doing this all throughout our first row. So grab your next one, pull up a loop, go to the next one, find the next stitch. If you look closely, it looks like there's that one, that one would be next. So just the one on the top is the one you're going to be going into. So you're going to go find that next one, pull up a loop, and you're going to do this through the entire row. So I'll meet you back once you have finished. Alright, now I'm towards the end of my row. I have 2 stitches left. So you're going to go into the second to last loop, pull up a loop, and now here, this is our last loop. You're going to put your finger through and then pull up a loop. And now we finished our first row. So now what we're going to do is go into our second row. So in your loop closest to your working yarn, so the one at the very end, you're going to pull up a loop just like you did before, except this time you are going to put your finger through that loop and then pull it up into that, and then you have that stitch right there. So now we're going to go into our next one, pull up a loop, and you want to make these not super tiny like this because it'll be really hard to go into, and as you go into other loops they're going to get kind of smaller because you're pulling on your yarn a little bit. So you're going to make it big-ish but not too big, otherwise it'll be super loose and won't look amazing. So you're going to go into your next loop, pull up another loop, and another thing you want to do is you want to make sure your loops are not twisted. So right now it's good, but then here it's twisted, and you can tell because this loop's on top of the other. When you do that, it kind of looks a little wonky. So you're going to make sure when you're going into your loops that they aren't twisted as well. And so I'm just going to keep going into those loops. One at a time. And it's making this kind of knit look pattern, and I'll meet you near the end. Okay, so I have 2 loops left, so I'm going to go into that loop, pull it up, and now we're in our first loop that was in our original chain, so we're going to go in that too, pull up a loop. Now to start our 3rd row, you're going to go into the same loop you just made, pull up another loop. Now you're just going to keep going across, pulling up loops. And that's going to be the majority of this project. So now, before I let you go for a while, I'm going to show you a couple things. So if your yarn, you're going across and you have this really long yarn tail in the back, and one of your loops looks smaller than the other, that just means that it came undone and you're making your loops too small. So what you can do is you can just grab that and pull it through. And then if I was on the stitch for my next round, I would just go in there again and pull it up, and now I'd be set to continue. So that's just troubleshooting tip right there. So now you're gonna keep going across, and you're gonna keep doing this for a while until you feel like you need to decrease. So if it's just like this, it's gonna kind of be a little square. And one thing of the magic of kind of like knitting or crocheting your own fabric is that you can manipulate it easier, and so you can make it wider or smaller. So you're gonna just keep doing this until you feel like you need to decrease, and it's gonna be too loose on you if you don't. So you're gonna do this for a while and keep doing the rows, and then I'll come back then to show you how to decrease. One more tip I forgot to mention is to check which loop you're on. Sometimes it can get a bit confusing, especially as you go on for longer. Is you look at your working yarn and you see which stitch that is coming out of, and then you look at the stitch to the left and the right of that and see which one's smaller and this one's smaller, so I know I need to go into that. And this is especially useful if you leave your project down for a bit and you weren't sure where you left off. Alright, so in my original video, I realized that I did not use increases for my corset where I probably should have, so it would have fitted better. So once you are a couple of regular rows in and you feel like you need to increase for your project to fit you well, you're going to start doing increase rows. So I'm going to show you how to do those. So what you're going to do is you're going to go into your first stitch like normal. Then you're going to look for this little line right there. Once you've found that, you're going to pull up a loop through that, and that is an increase. And then you're going to keep going along like normal till you reach the end, and then you're going to do another increase there. You do not have to do a second increase, especially if you feel like you only need one, but I highly recommend you try to keep it at 2, so that way it's more symmetrical. So you can see I have a little line here next to the end, so I'm going to pull up a loop there, and I'm going to go into my final loop like regular. So this is something I did starting from left and going to right. It'd basically be the same thing if you're going from right to left. You go into the top loop, then you'd find that little line, and you pull up the loop there. And then you go across, and then you do the same thing on the other side. So find that line, pull up a loop, then go into your last one and pull up a loop. And just keep doing this until you get the length you want. And another thing you can do to make it less dramatic, so you don't have a big bump like that, you can alternate increase rows and regular rows, and this will make it more smooth. And I'll teach you the decreases later too. I didn't mention it in there, but you can also do it there to get a smoother finish. But yeah, that's your increase row. Alright, so now I am 19 rows in, so not counting this chain we did at the bottom, I have 18 of these V's, and I'm also counting the loops at the top, and I'm going to start decreasing now. So what I'm going to do is, if you are going from left to right like I am, you are going to put your left loop on top of your right loop, and you're going to pull your working yarn through, and that's going to be our decrease stitch. So now you're going to go through the entire row, and when you get here, you are going to put your right loop on top of your left loop, take your working yarn and pull it through like that. And then also counts if you're going opposite. So if you're starting from this side, you would do right over left, do all of the rest of your stitches, and then do left over right at the end. And this is going to help us decrease, and you're going to do this until you have enough decreases that you feel like the piece can fit you well. So once I'm done, I'll come back and tell you how many I have if you're following my pattern. And you're just gonna keep doing the same decrease row over and over until you feel like you have achieved the right length. I have just done 4 rows of decreases. So once you've finished your decreases, what you're now going to do is do a regular row until it gets the length you want it to be. Alright, so I've just done 11 regular rows, and I feel like it's long enough now for me to make the point in my corset. So what you're going to do is count the number of stitches you have. For me, that is 37, and you're going to divide that by 3. So that's 12 remainder 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 12 closing stitches, and then I'm going to do 13 in the middle, and I'm going to keep those for the point, and then I'm going to do 12 on the other side, so it's even. So what you're going to do is you're going to start from your right side, and you are going to finish it. So you are going to put your loop to the left, through your loop in the right, and you do that. So I'm going to do 12 of those. Alright, so I just did 12 of stitches, and now we're going to do the same thing going from the other side. And if you do not want your top to have a point, you can just keep doing the closing stitch all across and then cut your yarn and weave it in. I'll show you how to do that later, and you will be good. So starting from left to right, I'm going to put my right loop through my left loop and keep doing that across, same thing we did on the other side, till we have done 12. Alright, so I just cut my yarn, so what we're going to do next is we're going to be basically making the point by doing a bunch of decrease rows. So you're going to start by putting your left loop on top of your right loop. And then you're going to take your yarn with your other hand, make a loop, and try to pull that loop through those two loops. It's maybe a little difficult, so you can try going in one loop at a time. And now we've just made our first loop. So now you're going to leave this tail behind, and you are going to keep doing stitches like a regular decrease row all across until you have 2 stitches left. Alright, so now I have 2 stitches, and we're going to do another decrease. This time it's going to be right over left. And now you're going to just keep doing that row until it narrows into a little point. So you'd start by doing the right over left, and you'd end by doing left over right. Just keep doing that until you feel like you have a good point. Alright, now I have 4 loops left, so I'm going to do 2 decreases, so right over left, and then left over right. And if you had 3 loops left, what I would suggest doing is 1 decrease, and then 1 regular stitch, so then the next stitch you can do 1 decrease to close it off looking nice. So we got our 2 stitches. And the next one, it doesn't really matter if you do left over right or right over left. I'm going to do left over right because that's what we typically do on this side. And now we finished our point. So cut my yarn. I'm going to show you how to weave in ends. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is to thread in and weave in all these little ends here so they don't continue to stick out. So what you're going to do is you're going to first thread your needle, and then we're going to make a bit of a stitch to weave it in. So what you're going to do is flip your work so the back side is up, and you are going to put your needle through 2 of these little ridges, I'm going to call them, in a row. Make sure it's not poking out on the other side, and then you're going to pull through. And now the next thing we're going to do is from this stitch, we're going to go into the next stitch, and then we're going to go back into the first stitch we went into, the top stitch, and we're going to pull through. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So go into the next stitch next to the one we're in right now, and then go into that bottom one we were just in and pull through. So it's a bit hard to see because I'm using the same color yarn, but if you look up close, there's a little loop right there, a little loop on the top. So we're making smiley faces and frowns. So again, you're gonna go from the bottom loop into the next closest bottom loop, and then go into that top loop you're originally in, pull through. And then you're just gonna keep doing this until your yarn tail is almost done. If you cut it off a little bit early, that's okay too. So from that bottom stitch, next stitch, original stitch, pull through, top stitch, next stitch, and the bottom stitch, and pull through. And now I think it's in good. So next thing I'm going to do is cut it. And once you've cut it, stretch it out a little bit, and if you turn it around, you can't see the stitch at all. And now our end is nice and hidden in the fabric. And it won't unravel as well. So I have a couple more tails I'm going to do that too, and then I'll meet you next about the straps. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is add our grommets. So what we're going to do first is lay these little circle pieces out on our fabric to decide how much we want per side. For me, I'm pretty sure I'm going to do 5 because that's what I typically do for corsets. And it is not mandatory to install grommets, but I suggest that you do because you can always poke the thread through the little holes here, but that will stretch the clothing out over time and it will make a big hole in the fabric as it is being pulled on. So yeah, I think 5 will be good for each side. So the next thing I'm going to do is cut out little squares of fabric. Since I have 5 on each side, I'm going to need 10. They should be about like 1 inch by 1 inch. So I'll meet you back when I've done that. And you want to use pretty thick fabric. You don't want it to be stretchy. And also you want to use a fabric color. Anything really works, but you want to use something that's either more like nude or something that blends well with your yarn color. Alright, I have just cut out all my squares, and I also did a zigzag stitch around the edges of each, simply because my fabric looked like it was fraying a bit. If you do not know how to work a sewing machine, this is completely optional, but if your fabric is fraying a little bit, I would recommend doing this. So what you're going to do is you're going to take one of your little squares and you are going to pull out this tool. It's Black in My kit. What this is a hole punch. We do not need to punch holes in our fabric that we knitted because it already has holes for us we can put stuff through, but for the fabric we do. So what you're going to do is you are going to put the part with the hole on top of your little square, take out a hammer, and you're going to pound the top of it. Make sure when you're doing this you're on a hard surface that won't budge, because this could do damage to soft surfaces. Alright. That wasn't enough, so I'm going to do it again. Alright, I just punched a hole in the fabric with the metal thing, and now what we're going to do is you're gonna take your knitted piece and you're gonna take one of these, should be metal and should have, there's flat ones and there's ones that are tall. You want the tall one, and what you're gonna do, right side out, so you want to see the V's, you're gonna put it where you want it to go. For the first one, you want to do it close to the bottom because you want to have one close to the bottom and one close to the top. Now what you're gonna do is you're gonna take this metal thing, you're gonna put it on that and poke that through. So you got that right there. The next thing you're gonna do is take your hole punched fabric, put it on top of that. You wanna line it up so that it is in the middle and there's like none of the crocheted fabric in between it. Then you're gonna take one of your flat washers and you're gonna put it so it's going up, like it's kind of like this. You want it to go like this when you put it on instead of going like down. So you're gonna put that on top. It should rest pretty tightly. And now what you're gonna do is you're gonna take this thing, it has a hole right there and not one at the top, and you're gonna put the whole side on top of that, and it should be on pretty tightly. Now what you're gonna do is you're gonna hammer this in, and then you've installed your first grommet. Alright, so I just finished, and this is what it looks like from the back. This is what it looks like from the front. So I'm gonna do that 5 more times on this side and 5 more times on the other side, and then I'll meet with you again to discuss the straps. Alright, so I've just finished adding all my grommets to my corset. A couple things I made sure I was doing while I was doing this is when I was choosing holes for the corset, I made sure not to choose ones that were super gigantic, like this one for example, because when you're putting the grommets through, it needs to be able to hold on to something, otherwise it will slip through. That's what these little pieces of fabric were for in the back. If we didn't have those, then the grommets would just fall off. So we need to make sure that in addition to holding on to the piece of fabric, the grommets are also holding on to our actual knit part. So we need to do that. Another thing is when you finish one side, to make sure it's even on the other side, what you can do is put them back to back and line them up as best as you can, and use that as a guideline of where to put the other one. So like you can see for this one, it's like a straight hole through, which is very good. So now we're going to add the ribbon. So I'm going to put it wrong side facing you. And you're going to fold these in a little bit. You want to make sure your point is facing away from you as well. So now I'm going to grab my ribbon, unravel it a little bit. And now I'm going to take the end, and I'm going to go through here to the other side. And pull it a little bit, but not too much. What we're doing right now is we are measuring how long we need our ribbon to be. So once you have done that, I'm gonna make sure this is going the right way. And now you're gonna thread it through your next grommet. So instead of going through this one, we're gonna go through this one to make it crisscrossed. Then pull it. When you're pulling these, you want to make sure you do not have an exorbitant amount of ribbon, but you also don't want it to be too tight either, because that will give you an inaccurate measurement because you won't be able to fit into your corset. So next thing we're going to do is do the same other thing. So skip this one, not go into this one, but go into this one. pull it through. Now I'm going to do the same on this side. And the same on this side. Alright, so now that we have it threaded through, we need to determine how much we need, because we also have the little bow at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure these are all the lengths I want them. I feel like this is a little too long right now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this back a little bit, pull this back, pull this back, pull that back, finally pull that and that to make it even. And now I have a slightly better amount. If you wanted to make it larger, you would start at the top, pull some through, pull some through, and keep doing that until your tail is longer. So what you're going to do is just keep adjusting until you get the ribbon the size you want. This does not have to be perfect because this is not your final lacing. This is just an estimation. And then if you want to see how the bow looks, you kind of do this a little bit and see this is too long of a tail, so I know to keep moving it back. Before I do that, I'm gonna try doing a bow here and see if I want more or less. And you're just going to keep doing this until you're satisfied with your length. Alright, so now I have finished my estimations. I have how long I want my yarn to be. So what I'm going to do is take it out very carefully. Make sure not to move this top piece here. And now here, I'm going to hold my finger where the middle of this is. Continue to pull through. So now that I have my middle mark, I'm going to carefully pull it through. Make sure I know where it is. And now I'm just going to fold this in half and double it. And so now I know where to cut. I'm going to cut it diagonally because I've seen a lot of my ribbon do that and I think it looks really nice. Alright, so now we have our completed ribbon. I'm going to roll this back up and come back to give you my measurement of how long I had it. So now I'm going to thread it for real. So what we're going to do is you're going to go through the front like that. Through the back. And you're going to try to keep playing with it until it's even at the ends. Alright, this is pretty even for me. And then I'm gonna extend it a little bit. I'm gonna do it a bit looser than when I wear it because I still have to put it on. I'm just going to double check my length again. what I'm doing is I'm pulling the ribbon away from me and adjusting it like that. Okay, so now pick a side. I'm gonna go with the right side. So we're gonna do the same thing we did before. We're gonna go through the grommet that's across from it, and then adjust it so it looks nice. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. So it looks like this. You can see our crisscross pattern starting to take shape. So next we're going to go back to the left side, which is where we left off. Go through the next hole and adjust it so it looks nice. Same with the other side. And you just keep repeating this until your corset is fully laced. The part where you're doing your decreases, I'm going to pull it in. Normally rests like this, but we're going to pull it in and it's going to tighten. So I'm going to do it the same length as all the others. Continue to pull through. Alright, now we're on our last one. I'm gonna pull through. And pull through. And just like that, we've finished our lacing. So now what you're gonna do is you're gonna try this on because we need to know where the straps are going to be, and if you are not adding straps and you want to be strapless, then you're done. But if you are adding straps, you're gonna need to try this on, make sure to tighten it how you want it, and then what you're gonna do is you're gonna take 2 pins and you're gonna pin it where you want the middle of your strap to go. So let's say I want it here. That means this would be the middle of my strap. The straps we are gonna be making are about 3 stitches long, so 3 of these. If you want them to be smaller, then you can adjust it however you like, but I would suggest putting the middle. So when we're going in, it would be our second stitch for 3. So that way you have a better understanding of where to put it. So I'll meet you back once you've done that. Oh, and one more quick thing when you're putting it on. I've noticed that when tying a bow, it is best to do this, do your regular bow tying, and then instead of going like we normally do, like over the front, you're gonna go over the back and pull through, and that way it looks more even. If you did how we normally do it, it tends to get a little lopsided and crooked. So that's just something I do whenever I'm tying my bows. Alright, I'll meet you back then with my stitch markers and place for where to put them. Alright, I just put my stitch markers in stitch 18 and stitch 29. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a loop with my fingers. and pull it through the loop to the left of the one that you put your first pin through. Now we're going to go take out the pin, and we're going to grab our yarn and pull up another loop, this one through the one we put our stitch marker through. And then finally we're going to go into that third one and pull up the third loop. These are going to be the start of our straps. So now we're just going to count it as a regular row. So we're going to go in, pull up loops, and we're just going to keep doing this until we get the length we want our straps to be. When I'm done, I'll let you know how long mine was. You may need to try on your clothes again to make sure that you have done the correct number of rows. I'll come back then. Alright, so I've just finished making the length of my straps. I have 32 rounds total, counting these loops at the top and not counting the joining that we did to the base. I've tried it on and I've put my stitch marker for where I want it to go on the end, about 3 stitches away from the end. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take that out and we're going to join this to our piece. So instead of going back through front like we did before, we're going to go front through back. So you're going to take your loop, kind of flip it over a bit, and pull it through. And you're going to do that on all 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, this may be a little difficult, but just take your time. Alright, so now that we have all 3 of our loops here, you are going to do the closing thing we did before, where you take your loop to the left and put it through the loop to the right. I'm going to do the same on this side. Alright, and now that we have this, we are going to cut our yarn and then pull it through that last loop. And then we're going to weave in that end and the end at the beginning. And then you're just going to do the same for both sides of the straps. I'll tell you where I put my stitch marker. It should be symmetrical though, so most likely it's going to be 3 from where we started. Alright, so I've just finished making the straps and sewing it on, and for my last little detail, I added some bows. So I did one already, and then I'm going to show you how to add the other, just in case you want to add bows as well. So I already tied the bow, and I've threaded my needle with some thread. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this thread down and match up the ends, and then pull it back. And now I'm gonna make a knot. So I'm gonna loop this in front of my needle and hold it in place with my finger. And using my other hand, I'm gonna go round 1, 2, 3 times. That's the number of knots we're gonna have. And then we're gonna pull it down. And we've just made ourselves a knot. So now you're gonna hold the bow where you want it. And then from the back, you're gonna poke through. And you're gonna pull that needle until it goes through. Now you're gonna make a stitch. So going to something to the left of it, you're gonna poke through and pull through. Careful it doesn't go through your bows, just like mine did. And pull it through. And that's our first stitch. I'm gonna be doing about 4 of these, so you're gonna poke through to where you want your next stitch to be. Pull through. And pull through. I'm doing all of this on the knot. I'm gonna do it 2 more times. And now we have 4. So now I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to find a stitch. So there's one right here. I'm going to poke my needle underneath that stitch. Just like that. And then pull it up so we have a loop. And then you're going to poke it through that loop and pull up to make a knot. Then I'm going to do this on the same stitch 3 times so I can get a triple knot. So that's 2. And that's 3. And then all that's left is cutting the thread. And then you finish sewing your bow on. So with that, I am done with my top. Alright, so the last thing I wanted to mention is how to fix a grommet that's like this. It's barely hanging on. This is probably because I chose too big of a hole to go into. So to fix this, I have a thread that's a similar shade to the yarn I'm using. And what I'm going to do is, once you've threaded it and tied a knot, you're going to poke through, and you want to make sure when you come up, you're getting the yarn. Pull through. Then you're going to make a really tiny stitch. And then go back through. And then you're going to do that until you feel like it's secure. The main thing you want to make sure while doing this is that you're getting the yarn This is going to be tying the grommet onto the yarn. And this is going to help it be more stable. So you're just going to keep going through. Make sure you're getting through both layers. And once yours is done, it should look like you made a little circle around the grommet. It's easier to see in the other one that I did, which is right here. And then you're gonna cut it and knot it, and then you're done. I hope you guys had just as much fun making the corset as I did. If you liked this video, please make sure to like and subscribe. It really means a lot to me and helps me so much. Make sure to comment below how your project went and how it turned out, and also let me know if I should make more of these hand knit tutorials. Thank you for watching.